Hello and welcome to my presentation of the new Sous Vide cooker, which is the innovative product development project that I've undertaken for this assessment. Sous vide is a cooking method that involves sealing meat in plastic bags and submerging the bags in water with the water set to an exact temperature, which gently cooks the meat to the same temperature as the water, but never goes over. It's impossible for the meat to exceed the temperature of the water. And so it's also a safe cooking method and a way to avoid overcooking, no matter how long the meat lays in the water bath. This sous vide cooker that I propose to develop builds the sous vide cooking method into a single compact outdoor unit run completely on solar power energy. Jump forward. Using renewable energy and vacuum bags made from recycled plastic that can be washed and reused time and time again, this unit will contain everything needed to cook the meat ready to serve. You can see here that sous vide meat cooked from the sous vide method, it retains all of its natural juices, whereas traditional cooking, you tend to lose a lot of flavor because that sizzling noise when the meat hits the pan is actually the juices coming out of the meat. So you're losing flavor, and consumers tend to compensate for this by over seasoning meat and trying to add flavor back in to compensate for the flavor that's lost. With sous vide, virtually no flavor is lost. It retains probably 95% of its natural juices, which adds to the tenderness. The unit will also have an electric grill for searing the outside of the meat once cooked in order to finish with caramelization. The meat, once it comes out of sous vide, and although cooked, the outside is still very soft, it needs to be seared in order to get that crusty caramelization to finish the meat ready to serve. That will be built into the unit and run solely on electricity. So again, renewable energy powers this portion of the unit as well. It powers the entire unit. And the bags used to seal the meat will be able to be washed and reused in the sous vide bath. That will provide water for washing, and a rack for drying the bags and storing them will also be built into the unit. And the water can also then be drained off from the base of the unit. It can be drained off anywhere you like. It can go straight onto a garden bed, or it can be drained into a bucket to be used some other way. The result will be a fully self-contained unit that operates from renewable energy and is developed from sustainable materials. And the benefits of this venture we've discussed the fact that it's 100% sustainable. With the rising cost of living in Australia, development that will enable people to save on food expenses, energy consumption, and cost of day-to-day necessities is a viable proposition. Our population is growing ever more environmentally conscious, and they're ready to embrace green solutions on an increasing basis. But it's also important for this to be cost-effective as well. Currently, where people's concern in sustainability ends is at the hip pocket. So if we produce a solution that is sustainable but also cost effective, it's a win-win, and far greater uptake can be expected. This venture also presents a product that's easy to use and easy to clean, and it offers wide application. It's a perfect companion for portable sustainable housing, which is also on the rise due to the housing and climate crisis currently being experienced. Consumers can enjoy the most tender and juicy cuts of meat without the price tag. Due to the gentle sous vide cooking method, the cheapest cuts of meat can have the resulting tenderness and flavor of more expensive cuts. And this is a good opportunity to jump forward to the mind map, where we've outlined some of the pain points of consumers and the action that's being taken, the value proposition that this venture offers. The price tag is a big concern. Basically, consumers can purchase the cheapest cuts of meat. So you don't have to buy expensive meat in order to enjoy quality cooking. You can buy the cheapest cuts that are even on special and run out stock that needs to go because it's 2 days before its use by date. It can be cooked in the sous vide method, and the result will be meat that is the same level of quality you experience at a high-end restaurant. So it's as though you spent $40 in a night for it, when you might have only spent $5 on a 3-day-old cheap rump steak. And being that it's electric, solely run by electricity, it also avoids the use of wood as fuel, which is rising in cost, same as coal. That's also rising in cost. But getting back to wood for a moment, this also will result in less trees being cut down. So it's another sustainable benefit. And addressing some of the personality traits of the entrepreneur, being myself, is I have a personal passion and interest in cooking, and I happen to know a lot about the sous vide cooking method, having used it myself, and I know how workable and reliable it is. And given that knowledge, that will give me the confidence and conviction to perhaps overcome some of the problematic personality traits that were flagged in my personality test, such as a fairly high level of anxiety and a tendency to second guess, self-belief, belief in what I'm putting forward will be overcome by that confidence and experience, and I will be able to present to potential consumers with conviction and self-assuredness and obvious belief in how it works and why it works. We're just going to move forward now to SWOT analysis. So a lot of strengths have been identified in this product. The product, it's completely sustainable, green solution using renewable energy and recycled materials to run and operate, which we've already covered in previous benefits. But another benefit is the fact that the sous vide cooking method is already established and popular in high-end dining, with limited distribution due to price, but it has an established, and it's actually very popular for those who can afford it. It's a portable unit that can be used anywhere, including camping. It could be built into an outdoor camping unit, or it could be put on a trailer and taken camping and set up next to your tent. It could be used anywhere. There's potential for future developments, with more premium units, more features, enhancements on the existing features, cost saving on meat, getting the best out of cheap cuts, which we've already discussed. It's time saving and convenient, because the meat will never overcook in sous vide. It can be left in there 2 hours before you're planning on serving it, and it can literally be taken out, seared for 60 seconds, and served in minutes when people are ready to eat. It's a new experience for regular food consumers who may not have had the luxury of eating in higher-end restaurants where this cooking method is implemented. And it's better than any fast food. And prepared fast. In other words, you're getting the convenience of fast food, but the quality of high-end dining. Let's move over to weaknesses. Some weaknesses that I have identified is the fact that sous vide is only known on a limited basis among the general public. And it's different to traditional cooking methods. This might inspire some doubt in people that will need to be addressed. It's something new. People don't always like change. Difficulty promoting uptake for these reasons, a lack of knowledge among the general public. It would take a lot of educating of the general public to sell the benefits of this venture. And the issue of whether or not it can retain enough solar power to run effectively, that it's not going to run out of power in the middle of cooking. The solar powers would need to be powerful enough to retain enough charge to run it for a suitable length of time without any interruptions. And there's also the potential for incorrectly cooking food at the wrong temperature, which could lead to food poisoning and other illnesses. Opportunities. As previously discussed, expansion to portable homes is an opportunity presented here as portable homes are on the rise due to sustainable housing crisis. A lot of people are setting up tiny homes. This is ideal for that sort of a setup, and also another completely sustainable and renewable solution. Expansion to households to redefine home cooking. This method could be implemented as into kitchens as a new modern kitchen. Further development of larger units with more features. We can develop as it's successful. We can build more premium units, larger units, more add-ons to make the method even easier to implement. Future supply to smaller restaurants. We could we could supply the cooker to smaller restaurants who don't currently use the sous vide method because industrially it requires a fairly large setup. So we could redefine cooking and dining for smaller restaurants. Supply to street vendors for serving takeaway food. It's a completely portable method. Again, it would be perfect for a street vendor who can have the meat pre-cooked and again serve it in minutes when somebody wants to order a steak sandwich, for instance. Development of more premium level units with more food prep features once tested with the public. So there are other things that could be developed. So to expand on that a little bit, because it seems a little bit like repetition of the previous point, but it's there are things that you can do with adding flavor, garlic and flavor injecting, gastronomy and things like that. So we could develop units that have those capabilities as well. Threats. It would be easy to replicate. There are portable sous vide units currently on the market, although not a lot of people, they're only known on a limited basis, but this method is fairly easy to replicate. So we would have to bear that in mind in our design. Safety concerns with people cooking to correct temperatures and avoiding health risks. We would need to address it and make sure that doesn't happen. Material and assembly costs. We would need to be mindful of keeping those down. Lack of consumer confidence, again, with a lot of people not knowing about the method and the fact that it's quite different from traditional cooking methods. Limited concern over sustainability. Again, we previously discussed that whilst concern over sustainability and green solutions is growing, it's still vastly limited. There's a big gap in that concern. Development and testing costs. Again, we would have to keep those down in order to develop a unit that's at the best quality it can possibly be for testing and ideal public feedback. The innovation. This unit will enable consumers to buy the cheapest cuts of meat and cook them to a level of tenderness and flavour, often only seen in high-end restaurants where people pay top dollar to eat it, as we previously discussed. As the meat is cooked gently, it retains most of its natural juices and therefore flavour, all of which are largely lost in the more standard and aggressive cooking methods. I went on a little bit earlier where I let the cat out of the bag early, but that's basically what happens with traditional cooking methods. You're losing flavour and you're losing juice. The longer a piece of meat remains on a hot grill, the more it contracts, and it's like a sponge. It contracts. The shock of the heat contracts it, and it loses its juices, which is why a gentle cooking method is always better. You don't get that contraction. And over seasoning is often used to compensate for that loss of flavor, as we said before. Now, this product will be developed using the lean startup model, where it's going to be largely based on testing with the public and taking public feedback into account when it comes to honing the design and finalizing it. We will test where it's how it lands with the public, what the concerns are, what the difficulties are, and things that might need to be changed. And so using the lean startup model is a little bit of a safer way, especially with a new venture like this. It's a bit of a more assured way of how it's going to play with the public. For instance, one of the ways that we would overcome a concern already highlighted, is the concern about consumers cooking to incorrect temperatures. We could build in to the unit a temperature cutoff. So you select the meat that you're cooking, and there's a temperature guide. Depending, if you're cooking red meat, you obviously cook it to your likeness. So you have the option to set the cooking as desired, but we could set it so it does not drop below a temperature that's actually safe for consuming the meat. So they can't undercook it. In other words, that could be built into the device. Customer feedback, testing with the public, taking all that into consideration, and redefining the model as we need to. Some may find it, there may be various difficulties because it's not a method, it's typically a method used by professional chefs. So your average mum and pa home cooks might run into some difficulty doing it correctly. Vacuum sealing the bags correctly. Is that easy to do, or is it problematic? Do we need to develop the machine so it more easily does that, for instance? But we can take all those concerns and all those possible problems with user experience into account as we continue to develop the unit before final launch. And finally, addressing some of the potential barriers to the success of this venture. The first potential barrier to the success of this product would be effectively communicating the vision and selling the concept to the general public and the value and benefits that it represents. And this could be exacerbated by the entrepreneur, myself, his tendency to second guess position and mindset on what I'm doing and why. But given that it's something new, this barrier would need to be overcome. We would need to be able to really inspire potential consumers to want to try something new and to really experience something that might blow their minds and their taste buds. Believing in the validity of the product and the vision and being able to communicate that with conviction, that will be crucial in selling the vision to potential consumers. And another potential barrier would be material and development costs. As previously discussed, if costs were to blow out, if it ended up being a very expensive unit to develop and therefore needed to be sold at a higher price point, that basically defeats the purpose. The idea of this venture is for consumers to be able to cook at home and buy cheap meat and cook the best meal they've ever had in their life. And if it's an expensive unit to buy, although it may save money in the long run, people are not very quick to adopt that long-term vision. It needs to be a very affordable unit for your average consumer. Cost-effective material sourcing and labor to assemble. Labor costs, how complicated is it to put one of these things together? That needs to be streamlined. And the product needs to be provided to consumers at a price point that's so it's in summary, to wrap this up, it needs to be streamlined for development and assembly, so labor costs don't blow out, and also material sourcing needs to be kept very cost effective. The cheapest but reliable materials possible need to be implemented, and also the labor costs, all that needs to come together in a very cost-effective development solution so that we can produce this product to the consumer at a very affordable price and keep within the purpose of the product to deliver high quality and a very high-end dining experience at home for very affordable ingredients and method of cooking. That concludes the presentation of the new Sous Vide cooker. And thank you very much for listening. And That will be all. Thank you very much.